Session 1-3. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the last and final prophet of Allah. The man for the mankind, Quran and Muhammad, by ex-brigadier Mustansir Billah. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. We begin with the name of Allah, who is most gracious and tremendously merciful. Surah 4:5 Al-Jasiyah, verse 2-6. Kullillahu yuhyikum summa yumitukum summa yajma'akum ila yawmil qiyamati la rayba fihi walakinna aksar nasi la ya'lamun. You say, it is God alone who has shaped you first, created you, given you life, then He'll make you dead, then gather you on the doomsday beyond a shadow of doubt, inevitably, then gather you on the doomsday beyond a shadow of doubt, inevitably. But a majority of people do not register it. But a majority of people do not register it. Quran and Muhammad, peace be upon him, millions are prepared to believe without questioning a man to be a god, but aren't prepared to accept that a man was primarily determined by divine guidance to receive his message, Allah's message, unmistakably, to be an ideal, a prophet for the mankind, for it to emulate, follow, to be worthy of divine pleasure. There are others readily taking idols as gods, but not thinking seriously about the possibility of a man being infallible, a prophet like other prophets, Abraham, Moses, Prophet Jesus, Noah, Solomon, and others. So also is the secularist invited to ponder, if only as a hypothesis, over a human life totally determined by divine intervention. It will be agreed that the divine superpower programmed and through spacecrafts, planets, stars, galaxies into space before the man launched his satellites. So also that if man can email most accurately, perfectly through the internet and tape messages from space satellites, divine power can also tape its message on the heart of a chosen, pre-selected person. So, if this possibility is accepted, then the only question remains if Muhammad, peace be upon him, was really the man provided with the divine guidance. So, if this possibility is accepted, then the only question remains if Muhammad, peace be upon him, was really the man provided with the divine guidance. Now, it's fairly simple. We have just to study the Quran, Muhammad's teachings, his ahadith, his own conduct, that is sunnah, his life and dealings, and make an opinion. Having introduced him in earlier sessions, now a few verses from Quran. Surah 2 Al-Baqarah verse 6-2, only the translation. Definitely those people who have become Muslims and those people who have become Jews and Christians, whosoever among them comes to believe in the unity of Allah in pure, unmingled monotheism, and on the inevitability of doomsday, and gives a pious performance, so for them there is the reward. I repeat, definitely those people who have become Muslims and those people who have become Jews and Christians, whosoever among them comes to believe in the unity of Allah, one, that is pure, unmingled monotheism, and on the inevitability of doomsday, that is two, and gives a pious performance, that is three, so for them there is the reward for the pious deeds from their Rabb, Creator, and there is no fear for them but the fear of Allah here and the awe of Allah hereafter on the day of accountability. Nor will they grieve here, nor on the day of accountability, and definitely not thereafter. It means salvation is not conditional, contingent to any group, denomination, etc. Believing in the unity of Allah and pious deeds are implacable, unchangeable proviso, necessary conditions, and will be rewarded. This rule has been spelled out because the Israelites were proud that we are the offsprings of prophets and we are the preferred, were proud that we are the offsprings of prophets and are the preferred with Allah in every way, no matter what we do. The point to note is that the Jews are the Ummah of Prophet Moses, and Nasara, the Ummah of Prophet Isa, Jesus. Sabians are denomination who took whatever appealed to them from any religion and believed in Prophet Abraham, and worshipped the angels too, and faced Kaaba in their prayers. A heterogeneous religion composed of different kinds of beliefs. Aladina Hadu. Ha and Hadu both mean Yahudi. Ha and Hadu both mean Yahudi, Jews. Hud means being repentant, returning to the truth, the right. Since these people, having worshipped the golden calf, repented and returned to the truth, they were named Yahudi. Nasara is the plural of Nasrani. There is a village, Nazareth, in Palestine. This is the place of Prophet Jesus. This is the place Prophet Jesus originally belonged to. So he is called Yasu Nazarani. The followers of Prophet Jesus are Nasrani, that is Nazarani. Christians and Nasrani are the same people called differently. Like the Jews, many Muslims consider salvation and supremacy their inherent right, for the latter being the followers of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Both these are contingent upon pristine monotheism, unity of Allah, and pious deeds as performed by Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his companions. If the Muslims begin indulging in shirk, they'll definitely be thrown into the fire of hell. If the Muslims begin indulging in shirk, they'll definitely be thrown into the fire of hell. It is as though a ruler or king declares that his order is for all, whether with us or against us. Whoever obeys will be rewarded. Obviously, those in favor would follow anyway. It's a message for the disobedient, actually. Yet it also warns the obedient that the fact that they are being rewarded is not for some inherent superiority, but for being obedient. So, it should never be taken to imply that salvation can be attained without accepting Islam. So, it should never be taken to imply that salvation can be attained without accepting Islam. The Jewish tradition of taking the easy, leaving the difficult, adopting a few pious deeds, and leaving others wasn't the way of the companions, the blessed ones. Having nisbat, affinity, relation with the Prophet, peace be upon him, for being born among the Muslims is not a license of supremacy in the world and salvation hereafter. I repeat, having nisbat, affinity, relation with the Prophet, peace be upon him, for being born among the Muslims is not a license for supremacy in the world and salvation hereafter. Generally speaking, one is no longer a true member of a community by birth. One has to prove one's faith, iman, and commitment to Allah through their deeds. Through the deeds. The community is not a given fact, but a constant reconstruction. The community is not a given fact, but a constant reconstruction. Sunnah constitutes the Ummah. Without Sunnah, there is no Ummah. I repeat, Sunnah constitutes the Ummah. Without Sunnah, there is no Ummah. Thus, for the first time in Quran, the inexorable, unchangeable message, iteration by Allah, that unmingled, pristine monotheism and pious deeds based on it are the fundamentals of achieving salvation and nothing more. Monotheism means considering none else but Allah alone worthy of worship, subservience, obedience. And how can we do this unless we find out how He, that is Allah, wants us to worship, subserve, obey Him? And there is no painstaking research required. There is no painstaking research required, for Allah makes this clear too. The conduct of the Prophet, peace be upon him, is the determinative, having the power and authority to determine or limit the way of worshipping, being subservient, obedient, and what all constitutes the pious deeds desired by Allah. I repeat, the conduct of the Prophet is the, peace be upon him, is the determinative, having the power and authority to determine or limit the way of worshipping, being subservient, obedient, and what all constitutes the pious deeds desired by Allah. Prophet, peace be upon him, is the paragon, paradigm, perfect example, model of Quran, the Quran incarnate, that is Quran and human shape, the walking Quran. When he recited Quran, he reproduced the very word of Allah. And when he spoke other than Quran, it was all the will, desire, intent of Allah expressed in the Prophet's words. The Prophet, peace be upon him, is the proxy of Allah as established, declared by Allah in these verses, which I'll give out. 4 Surah Al-Nisa, verse 80 states, translation, he who obeys the Prophet, peace be upon him, obeys Allah. And the one who turns away, then don't force him. We haven't appointed you a warden over them. Another verse of Surah Nisa, verse 6-9, and we didn't send any prophet but to be obeyed by the order of Allah. I repeat, and we didn't send any prophet but to be obeyed by the order of Allah. An-Nisa, verse 69, that was. Another verse of An-Nisa, and he who obeys Allah and obeys his Prophet, so these are those who have been rewarded, elevated, honored by Allah, and that they are among the prophets, the Siddiqs, the truthful, martyrs, and the righteous, and their association is blessed. I repeat, and he who obeys Allah and obeys his Prophet, so these are with those who have been rewarded, elevated, honored by Allah, that they are among the prophets, the Siddiqs, the truthful, martyrs, and the righteous, and their association is blessed. And the last verse today, anyone who opposes the Prophet, this is Surah An-Nisa again, verse 115, translation, anyone who opposes the Prophet after guidance has been plainly conveyed to him and diversifies, changes his way, deeds, doings from that of the Prophet. I repeat, anyone who opposes the Prophet after guidance has been plainly conveyed to him and diversifies, changes his way, deeds, doings from that of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and follows a path at variation, different from that of the truthful believers, that is the companions, will leave him, allow him to go on that very path where he has turned, headed, and ultimately will put him in the hell, and ultimately will put him in the hell, which is an evil refuge. That's all for today. Jazakallah. Please pray for me, ex-Brigadier Mustansir Billah.